So we're looking at a throttle valve from a 2.0 TDI common rail diesel, same I believe as on a 1.6 TDI as well. As you can see, there is carbon on the inside. It's a little bit hard to see in this light, but there is a fair chunk of carbon on the plate there and around the sides, and as you can imagine, that potentially could cause an obstruction, not just the airflow, but the actual movement of the throttle valve. And as we can see, this is completely an electrical unit, so it's got a motor, it's got potentiometers. This is used on a diesel not for the speed regulation of the engine like on a petrol. It's merely for when you shut off the engine, it can choke the engine basically and stop it running on, but it's also for use in EGR operation. It can have partially or completely shut to regulate the amount of EGR. The EGR would be this side of the throttle, and this would be the boost piping from the turbocharger and the air intake. So we'd have fresh air coming in here. We have an EGR valve this side before the intake manifold, and if the EGR is activated, it will partially close this valve. So it's an important role in the diesel process on a modern common rail TDI, like I say, 2.0 TDI. Like 2007 or 8 upwards with the common rails, and these commonly come in for engine lights and glow plug warning lights because of supposedly defective throttle valves. Now, there is actually no issue with the throttle valve itself, it's covered in carbon. If you replace the throttle valve, it will fix the problem, but it will carbon up again in, I don't know, 50,000, 100,000 kilometers or whatever. What happens then is you end up with all this crap all over the throttle body, and that's no good. You know, any sort of difficulty this thing has opening, closing, etc., being regulated, it's going to be picked up by the current drawn on this motor. This is all, like I say, highly monitored by the engine ECU. It will trigger an engine light, it will trigger a code. So you can see the throttle flap in this position here. Bolts to the bottom of the plastic inlet manifold. This is a 2.0 TDI common rail. There's no EGR valve. It's a bit further downstream. We're actually just looking at where the exhaust gases will enter into the manifold. And as you can see, there is this flange here, and what we would do is we would remove this pipe, unbolt it down here, these two bolts, undo this clamp, remove the pipe, undo the two T30s, there's one behind here, and obviously this one here. And then we would rotate this housing 180 degrees, and what you find is that there's down here somewhere, there's a little notch below the bolt. So what you do when you flip it, you have to grind a notch, I believe, into this side here, and just take out around this area like this, so you can rotate it, and this will then end up in the notch for the locator. And that will basically make the exhaust gases point into the manifold instead of out of the manifold. But clean the throttle body, rotate the EGR intake tube, so rather than it pointing back to the throttle, it points into the inlet, and then there should be no issues afterwards. So you can see this is how it was removed from the vehicle. So there's the 2-bolt flange on the side of the manifold. This was sitting this way around, and as you can see, this is then pointing back down to the inlet piping and the throttle body. And as you can see, there's that groove I was saying about, ground into the lower right side. So all we do is replicate that up here, and then we can rotate this 180 degrees and then we're essentially pointing that hole back up into the inlet. Obviously we would clean all this off because this is covered in crap, and hence why the throttle valve will also be covered as well. So we'll just aim this like that up into the inlet, and we'll, like I say, replicate that grinding slot, replicate that over here where my finger is, and then it will bolt back up, no problems. That's how to prevent it from future occurrence. Just a carbon clean and a redesign, basically, reflow of the exhaust gases. So yeah, basically clean up the throttle plate, carby clean or something like that. Don't spray it into it, because if it goes down the shaft it can go inside the control side of the unit. And then this is just plastic gears inside of here off of the motor. The motor has a metal gear, and then there's generally, I think, 1 or 2 plastic gears that come off of it. And if the carby clean or whatever you're using that's high hydrocarbons and whatnot, that breaks down all this stuff, anything like that will creep down and past the shaft seal, break down the shaft seal, but it will also creep down and end up inside this mechanism and start breaking down all the plastics, and then the teeth break off the plastics. So yeah, jam the screwdriver in here and dig out all this stuff. You can see it's coming off of my hands. It's not hard or anything like that. It's a simple cleaning task. Dig it all out, bit of carby clean on a rag, and wipe it out basically. But this affects all 2-litre TDIs between, I believe, about 2007 probably down to about 2013 and 14, something like that, before the Euro 6 emissions. I think it's an EA 288 is the latest engine, which does, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have this issue. So yeah, the Euro 5 emissions, common rail 2-litre TDI, and probably affects the 1.6 TDI. I'm sure it will probably have the same throttle body. So yeah, that's the fix for that one, guys. Like, share, subscribe, leave comments below, any ideas that you've got, if you disagree, if you agree, if this helps or whatever. But yeah.